everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Angel and today I'll be sharing some more budget-friendly DIYs. Before we get started, don't forget if you enjoyed today's video to give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel and click that little notification bell so that you won't miss out on any of my future videos. This first project was inspired by this slatted wood pumpkin from Kirklands. So I picked up this similar one from Dollar Tree, and the first thing I did was just go ahead and fill those holes with some spackling, and while that's drying, I picked up one of these little frames. I'm just going to be using the stand, so I just popped that off the back and I went ahead and gave this one coat of white Waverly chalk paint. Now you don't have to use this stand if you don't want. You could totally use tumbling tower blocks to stand this pumpkin up. It's up to you. I just thought that this was easy, and once I finished painting that, I went ahead and gave the pumpkin one coat of the white chalk paint as well. Now I'm not going to be leaving this pumpkin white since the Kirklands one is more of a lighter neutral wood tone. Instead, I decided to go over this with some of my antique Waverly wax because I just love the color that this makes. I also went ahead and gave the stand a really light coat as well. Now the Kirklands version did say give thanks, and I do have this little wood piece from Dollar Tree. It comes in a pack of 5, I believe, and it does say give thanks, but I decided to use this little metal galvanized harvest sign instead, also from Dollar Tree, and I'm gonna go ahead and give that a coat of black paint, and then I will seal this with some of Waverly's clear wax, just because sometimes paint tends to come off of this very easily, so that helps it stay. And again, you could use the other signs from Dollar Tree if you wanted. This is just how I wanted my sign to look. Once that was dry, I just went ahead and used some of Dollar Tree's gel super glue to attach this to the pumpkin. Then I went ahead and just used hot glue to attach the little stand to the back of the pumpkin. And finally, to finish this off, I just used some beads I had in my stash with some of Dollar Tree's twine to wrap around the stem. This next project is inspired by this Kirklands Hello Fall little tabletop sign, and I just picked up one of Dollar Tree's tabletop signs, and I thought I was going to be using the front. You can see here I started to remove everything, and it came off really easy, but there was still like a grid mesh under here, so I ended up painting the whole thing anyway, front and back, with one coat of my white Waverly chalk paint. We're going to be doing the same technique as I did last time on the pumpkin, but I'm going to make this one a little darker by just doing 2 coats of the antique wax. I don't know why, but I am just so obsessed with the color that this makes. When you put the wax on top of the white chalk paint, it is just a gorgeous wood color, and I have been doing it on everything, I know, but it always turns out so gorgeous. So for this sign, I will be using some of those little wood pieces. Again, these come in a pack of 5, I believe, at Dollar Tree. And I know they have them this year because I just picked up 2 more packs of these, but I did just go ahead and paint that white. And once it was dry, I just used some Dollar Tree wood glue to attach this. Now the Kirklands version did have like a wreath around the Hello Fall, so I'm just using one of these little wood circles from Dollar Tree, making some lines, and then I'm just going to hand paint some vines around this. But you could definitely use a stencil if you needed to, or if you have a Cricut, you could definitely do that as well. I am definitely not great at drawing, but these vines are super easy to do. You pretty much just make the little vine around the words and then just paint on some leaves and you are all finished. This next project was inspired by this Kirklands rustic harvest jug. I picked up one of these jugs from Dollar Tree a few years ago, but you can usually get these at Dollar Tree during the fall season every year. So the first thing I did was just go ahead and give this a few coats of my white chalk paint. To cover this green, it took about 3 coats, I think, but I'm pretty sure that this year they do have white ones, so it would probably be a lot easier than covering this green. The Kirklands one did have like copperish gold handles and a rim, so I went ahead and mixed some of my metallic antique gold with some of my antique copper, and then I just went ahead and painted the handles and just around the top of the rim. So for the pumpkins that the Kirklands one had on the front, I am going to be using these Dollar Tree rub-ons. These are new for this year. I don't even know if they had them last year, but I picked up a whole ton of these because they are so pretty. It's just watercolor pumpkins, and I'm just gonna cut out one that I liked that was similar to the one that Kirkland's had, and I'm just gonna press this on to the front. Now this next Kirklands inspired DIY is not really a DIY because Dollar Tree already has similar pumpkins to the ones that Kirklands sells, and I have a ton of these. This is not even half of what I have, but I do like the white and the green ones. Now the orange ones, they're a little bright for my taste. So for this DIY, I am just gonna change the orange ones. So all I had to do was just gather up the pumpkins that I want to use for decorating this year, and I just mixed up some of my harvest orange paint and then some of my burnt umber paint to make this rusty orange color that matched the Kirklands orange much better. This next DIY was inspired by this fall knit pumpkin block from Kirklands. Now Dollar Tree is selling the chunky pumpkins, but I haven't been able to find them anywhere, but I did find these chunky leaves, and I thought these would work perfectly for this project. Now originally I had bought these just to sit out because they are so pretty, but I didn't even realize that they had letters on the front of them until I got them home, and then I realized I would have to make these over anyway. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that this is not my first sweater front project. I've actually done sweater front Christmas trees, and I did the wood bunnies from Dollar Tree with a sweater front as well. So I will again be using my old sweater that I got from a thrift store, and I'm just going to trace around this and cut it out. Now this next part is kind of where I messed up a little bit, and I wanted to show you because if you do this project and you buy these fall leaves, don't paint it, because that is a piece of paper that's just a sticker on top of it. It really looks like it is kind of painted on there, but after I painted this whole thing on the front, I found out that it's just a piece of paper and it's barely hanging on, and it comes right off. And you can see I'm just like, what am I supposed to do now? Because since I had painted that, there was white around the edges, and I just didn't want it to look like that. So I ended up just going back in with some of that antique wax and just covering the whole thing. So while that was drying, I figured I would go ahead and start working on the little sign pieces that go on the front. This is just 2 little wood pieces from the race car kits at Dollar Tree, but you could definitely just cut down one of the thicker craft sticks from Dollar Tree or use fabric. It's totally up to you. But I'm just going to go ahead and give these 1 coat of my white chalk paint. Now the tags on the Kirklands one said hello fall, but since I already did something that said hello fall, I decided to use these rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree and just do the hello autumn one. So I'm just going to cut those words down and split those up, and I'm going to put hello on one of the tags and autumn on the other tag. Then I'm just going to go ahead and hot glue the sweater front down, and I'm just working in sections so that I can place the sweater where I want it and it fits correctly. Then finally, all I had to do was add the tags, and I just used some of Dollar Tree's gold thumbtacks to put these on here, and you don't even need any glue really. They just pop right in. You just have to push a little bit and they'll pop right in. This next Kirklands inspired DIY is from this wood beaded pumpkin, and I picked up some of this bead garland from Dollar Tree. Now you could just use regular beads, whatever you have, but I picked this up and it was plenty to make this project. I also grabbed 3 of these 8-inch chunky wood pieces from Dollar Tree as well for this project. The first thing I did was just go ahead and paint all 3 of those wood pieces with my white chalk paint. And once those were dry, I'm just going to take that bead garland and kind of size it up beside one of the wood planks. Then I'm going to flip over my wood piece and I'm going to put a pretty thick line of Dollar Tree wood glue so that I can just push the beads up against it. This is definitely easier if you just leave the beads on the garland and do this than trying to push them up against there one at a time. I just found that this was much easier, and luckily I needed 15 beads that fit perfectly up against this, and you can see here once I had that one, I just went ahead and put some wood glue on the other one and slid it right up against the other side of the beads. And then I did end up cutting the garland and some of the beads came off, so I had to place a few one at a time, but then I was able to put the string back up in there and finish connecting these. I also ended up adding a few craft sticks to the back of this with some wood glue just to make sure that it stayed and it was secure. And finally, for this project, I just added one of the little wood pieces from Dollar Tree to the top as the stem. You could totally paint the wood beads if you wanted to, but I like the contrast the way it was. This final Kirklands inspired DIY is from this gray harvest canvas art, and I'm just going to be using one of these wood planks from Dollar Tree. Now you can of course use a canvas, but I thought that this would look really nice, and instead of gray I went with just staining my wood piece with some of my antique wax. I'm also going to be using some of these letter stickers for this project. I got these at Walmart, but I'm actually not going to be using the letters. I'm actually going to be using around the letters as a stencil. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out the letters that I'm going to be using just to make this easier for me to find out where I want to place everything. Now, if you wanted to, you could definitely just use the stickers on here, but I thought that painting and stenciling the letters would make it look more high-end, so that's what I'm going to be doing right here. I'm just peeling off around the letters, leaving the letters on the paper, and then placing them on my wood board. Then just to make sure that there's no bleeding and running under these stickers, I'm just putting a pretty thin layer of Mod Podge all over the stencils. Then I just went ahead and did 2 coats of my white chalk paint on top of here. And for the most satisfying part, then all I had to do was just pull off those stencils. And once I had that pulled off, I decided I wanted to add one of these little pumpkins from these rub-on transfers from Dollar Tree and a couple of the leaves to finish it off. And here's how it turned out. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.